Hello everyone, welcome to the channel again. So today we'll be studying about psychoanalytic literary criticism. Let's just start it with one simple fact that stories reveal the hidden parts of our brain which even our brain doesn't know that it exists. This was the idea that was proposed by Sigmund Freud. Imagine our mind like a house. In that house, there are so many rooms. Let's just assume that rooms conveys the controlled thoughts we have, conversation we do in everyday life, whatever we do, that these all are the rooms which are in that house. We can say that rooms are symbol of these things, okay? But there is a basement in that house, and that basement is locked. What do we have in that basement? In that basement, we have buried fears, thought, some shameful actions which we did unintentionally or intentionally. That basement is our unconscious mind. That part that exists, but we don't know that it exists. Sigmund Freud explained all these concepts, and he said that basement part is something which controls the writer's idea before pouring them all over a page. Because when a writer is writing, he is pouring all his thoughts that was in his unconscious mind. That's what he proposed. It is like an iceberg theory. How does it connect to iceberg theory? Because in an iceberg, you see only the tip of the iceberg, which is only 5%, and that resonates with our conscious mind. But the hidden part of the iceberg, which contains 95% of our brain, that resonates with the unconscious mind, that contains each of the actions which we do. I mean, the actions which are inspired from the things which we don't even realize. Sigmund Freud explained three voices that exist in the human and that we usually see in the literary piece of paper as well. These were id, ego, and superego. Now, id can be explained as a toddler's voice. For example, a toddler insists on everything, like I want this toy, and he will not resist that thing. He will just make his parents, agree with that. Like, I want this one. If you have read about Christopher Marlowe's Tamburlaine the Great, Tamburlaine was all obsessed to conquer the world. He was not even listening to his child. That was the id, which was used by which was used by Christopher Marlowe. The next we have is superego. Superego can be explained or can be understood as the parent's voice, like the strictness that the parents exhibit. For example, the parents tells you that if you will do this, then what will the people think? They think of each and every possibility that comes in the society, where we have to think about the social responsibility, social rules and conducts and codes. That is what the voice of superego. Then the third is ego. Now, ego is something which lies in between, and between what? Of id and superego. Ego says that let's do something and let's find out something or find a way to work in the middle. Let's not just insist on one thing, and let's just not be strict like the superego. We will find out a way in which no one will get hurt. That is the ego. Now, most of the movies we see nowadays are based on the ego, where they try to find out a balance between the evil and the good. However, in the end, they try to show the protagonist as on the good side. Sigmund Freud also explained some of the other things as well, like repressed feelings. Now, what do you mean by repression? when we have too much pain, we have too much shameful things which we had done, and we don't want it to get on the surface to let other people know. We want to just bury it deep down on our mind, and we don't want to let it out. We just pretend that everything and each thing is okay. That is repression. Now Freud says that repressed feelings comes out. It stays in the unconscious mind. As I already told you, that buried feelings also remains in the unconscious mind, and Freud says that it comes out from our unconscious mind, and it comes out in the scarier and most bad ways. For example, in Devdas, if you have ever watched the movie, in that the two families didn't agree about the marriage because of the class and the ego. That was the whole point that was lying in the movie. Because of the class and ego, they didn't agree with the things which their childs would have been happy in that way more. In that way, they would have been more happy, but they didn't. And in the end, it all bleeds truth in the most dirtiest ways. They, both of them are not happy. The central thing that lies is the repressed feeling there. Freud says that we sees dream. Why do we see dreams? Because most of the time our brains functions and tries to communicate with us through the images and not the words. How? Whenever we dream, we see the images which our mind wants to convey to us, but cannot say directly. Now, after seeing those images, we have to take something out which we can understand from these images in our dreams. We can simply ask question that why am I just keep seeing these images again and again? What feelings are attached to these images? There comes another writer as well, who is Jacques Lacan. Now Lacan says that everything we do, however, he was a very big, very difficult writer, but there is one beautiful concept that he had given, that all our life we all are revolving around longings, which is like desire. For example, we want to get something, but after getting that thing, we don't feel full, we still feel empty, because that was all about the longing which we had to get that thing done. So it is all about the state, the feeling that we desire for that longing, that desire actually. So that is the life, he says. Now whenever you read a text, you just have to see that what is the hidden part, what is the hidden thing that the author is hiding, or the story is hiding from you, or themselves. What are the feelings that are attached, that is not being propagated directly, and what does the story seem to be working through emotionally. So it is like psychoanalytic criticism can be summarized in simple words that every story has a hidden window into someone else's life. Now it can be the author, the character, and you yourself. That's it. That's all about Freud's psychoanalytic criticism. And all the notes which I had made during my preparation, I'll be attached in the end of the video. See you soon.